What's up, everybody? We have 10-ish minutes here to discuss the topic of some backcountry safety, and I think even we'll get into bees and bee stings, things like that. Mark, you love bees. Honeybees.
I did.
Like getting stung by them and stuff.
Yeah, I tried to keep bees one year. I'm not a professional beekeeper. My bees died, Jim, and I haven't. Right. I've been wanting to attempt it again, but I chose the only the strong survive attitude as far as caretaking for my bees over the winter.
Right.
We had a new baby that year, and so I didn't have as much time as I would have wanted to dedicate to them, and they weren't strong enough.
So bees in general may have a little something against you. You should probably take note of things that are talked about here.
I gave them home for a little while.
Anyway,
getting off topic here. We are back again with Joey Pyburn from Outdoor Line Radio and out of downtown Seattle. They do all sorts of great stuff as far as a lot of fishing content, a lot of hunting content, just really good stuff and awesome show. So, Joey, thank you guys for providing that. I'm a longtime listener.
You bet. Nice to talk to you, Jimmy and Mark again.
Awesome. So, as Jim said, we're going to talk about some backcountry safety and bees. A lot of us are hunting right now. It's November now. We've turned the calendar page. So if you're listening right now, it may not be November for you, but it's November for us right now. A lot of people have been hunting. A lot of people hitting the backcountry, going on trips, and you want to be safe out there, right? Like you're kind of generally away from civilization. You don't have all the amenities. You might not be able to just drive to the emergency room in short order. So you want to be safe out there, and there's definitely some things that you're going to want to keep in mind, and that's why we have Joey here to tell us all about how to be safe in the backcountry, or just like I said, definitely some cool tips and stuff that folks ought to be thinking about. So
yeah, I had an interesting experience in September on an elk hunt here in Washington. My buddy Rob Inslee and I took off from the truck and hiking up the mountain. We were headed, I think we were about 4 miles in, going in for, again, like 3 to 5 days maybe. Beautiful day, sunny, 70 degrees, and hiking up the trail. I was in the lead, and it wasn't like I was attacked by the bee. I later found out, just doing some research, that bees yellow jackets specifically can fly, upwards of almost 30 miles an hour. So this bee is just hauling butt through the woods, right?
Joey, he was charging. Home. He was charging.
He was heading home from work or whatever he was doing. And I stepped in front of him, and he slammed into my right ear, and he stung me. And I'd been stung before that summer, I'd only been stung one time. And then earlier that summer in June, I was stung, hit a ground nest and got stung like 5 times in my right arm. Had a little bit of a response, but nothing crazy. My arm swole up a little bit, nothing anaphylactic. So I get stung in the ear, and immediately my feet start burning.
Oh, wow.
It was the weirdest thing. And I could just tell, like, I didn't feel right. And within 30 seconds, Rob goes, your eyes are swelling shut and your lips are swelling. And I'm like, yeah, I can feel it. And I'm super itchy immediately. So Rob goes, what about your airway? And I swallowed, and I was like, oh yeah, on the right side of my throat, it felt like somebody just was pressing on my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, it's swelling. And so Rob right away is like, we got to get you out of here. But at this point, we're on the side of the mountain, 4 miles in, and I'm not feeling right. And so I've taken backcountry first aid and CPR. And one of the most important things is to try to stay calm, right? And at this point, I felt like it was better for me to sit down. Actually, my feet were super itchy, so I took my boots off. I just kind of laid back and tried to get my heart rate down. And at that point, it's kind of like, well, I didn't have an EpiPen with me. I didn't have Benadryl. I didn't know I was allergic. So I kind of laid back and just relaxed. Now I have an inReach with me all the time. So with that inReach, you can SOS, you can get somebody coming, but you hear it all the time, like, oh, a guy gets stung by a bee, his throat swells up and he's dead. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there on the side of the mountain thinking about that. I'm like, holy cow. I hope this doesn't get any worse, because there's no option. You're not getting somebody in there. Nobody's coming to save me, And Rob's like, well, maybe I should run out and try to go get Benadryl. But we're, like I said, 4 miles in, and then a 2.5 hour drive just to get to the closest town.
Yeah. And
by the time he would have gotten there probably wouldn't have been any place open. So yeah, after, I don't know, I'm 45, after, almost 30 years of backcountry hunting, I had kind of my first like crazy, dangerous medical, or almost like an injury in the backcountry. So it definitely made me start thinking about backcountry safety a little bit more. I always have a first aid kit, trained in first aid and CPR, but man, something like that is just so weird to have happen, and to be totally unprepared and helpless on the side of the mountain was pretty spooky. So since then, everybody I talk to, I kind of tell them like, hey man, you should have Benadryl in your backpack. You guys both should have Benadryl in your backpack, and maybe even carry an EpiPen. Maybe you're not allergic, but maybe somebody you're with is, or you come upon somebody in the woods, and they're in a situation like I am, and you can maybe save their life.
Well, I think a big thing to think about there is, before that moment, you weren't allergic, right? So you didn't have any major indicators. Like, it's not like you forgot your epi or the Benadryl didn't make it in. You didn't know, and I think that's an interesting thing to think about. Just because you are a lot of times, far away from help, and you only have yourself, and so you don't know when it's gonna flip that switch.
Do you need to have a allergy, or go to the doctor and prove that you have some sort of allergy to get an EpiPen? How does one get an EpiPen? I've never had one, because I never had any notable allergies.
Yeah, well, so my cousin Ryan Lampers, he'll just die if he gets stung by a bee. So he's always carried an EpiPen with him. Hasn't been stung since he was 15 years old, and you guys know, like in the elk woods, you're always running into ground nests. So it could happen to anybody. And so when I got back from this trip, I obviously, on the way home, called my doctor and, told her what happened. And she just called the prescription in. You don't have to, it's not like you got to go, you could just call your doctor and say, hey, I need the EpiPen. I got stung and had a bad reaction. They'll call it in for you. You can just go pick one up. I got 2 of them because I learned from her that I always thought, well, if you got stung by a bee and you had an anaphylactic response and your throat, the only time you use that thing is if your throat is closing and you feel like you're not going to be able to breathe. Bang, you hit yourself with it, right? I always thought, well, if you had to do that, it fixes it. You're good. But all it does is mask the symptoms until you can basically get to the hospital. So depending on where you're at, you may need 2 of those things to get yourself out and to the hospital, right? To where you can get treatment. So guys want to know that if you do have to use that EpiPen, don't use it and then you're going to feel better and think, well, I'm just going to stay back here and hunt. You need to get out of the mountains immediately and get to the hospital. So when I got stung, I sat there for a couple hours. My throat never got any worse, but then my nervous system, I started shaking, almost like convulsing uncontrollably for hours. And Rob set up my tent, blew up my air mattress. Basically, I just crawled in there and laid down, and I couldn't move. I just laid there and shook till about 12:30 at night. Very uncomfortable. My body was covered in hives, and I probably about 12:30 I told Rob, finally I was like, I could breathe without like this choppy breathing. And I said, I think I'm kind of over the hump here. And Rob's like, oh, thank God, buddy, you know, get some sleep. Cause he'd been late. He set his tent up right next to mine. And every 5 minutes was like, how you doing, buddy? How you doing? How you doing? And, so I thought, well, okay, I'm over it, and couldn't really sleep because I was so itchy. So I just laid there kind of uncomfortable all night, but my breathing was better. And then, so in the morning I was like, well, I got to get water. I'm dehydrated. So I grabbed my bow, backpack, stomp up the mountain, go, and I find water. I drink some water. I eat a little food, and then the diarrhea started, and that lasted all day. And but we hunted, and
I love the fact that you still went hunting afterwards. Anyway, keep going.
Well, we hunted around, you know, and obviously I was having to stop a lot and rest or go to the bathroom. And finally, Rob's like, dude, we got to get you out of here. You know, if you get stung, there's bees like singing all over the place. He's like, if you get stung again, you're probably going to die. So we hiked out that night. When we got down to the trailhead, there was a gentleman there that had a camp set up. And the other option for us was drive 2 hours out of the mountains to a store. I went down to their camp and I was like, hey, you guys wouldn't happen to have Benadryl with you? And the young, his son did. He had Benadryl. So he gave me about 6 of them. I took some, and I thought, you know, at that point I was feeling better. So we hiked back in that night. And at that point, I'm just thinking, well, it was a bee sting. I'm over the hump, you know? So I was pretty exhausted, hadn't slept the night before. We hunt till dark, go back to camp. I eat some food, go to bed. I wake up the next morning and my whole right side of my face is swollen again.
Whoa.
I saw the picture, Jim.
I think you showed that to me. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was Joey. So now
I'm putting two and two together.
You don't even
At
recognize
first, kind of like, hey, look at this guy. Oh, man, he looks rough.
Well, because you wouldn't recognize him from that picture.
Yeah, it was nuts. And so I wake up and my right eye is pretty much swollen shut, but we'd had this little bull bugling all night. So right away, Rob sees me. He's like, we got to get out of here. And I was like, let's give it an hour and see if we can, you know, call that bull in. And we didn't. The bull split. But at that point, I still felt bad. Like my body didn't feel right. So we got out of there and came home. And just a crazy experience after that many years of hunting in the woods and never having like an accident. I've never fallen or twisted an ankle or broken anything. Mm-hmm. And then this one little bee. What my doctor told me was, look, as you get older, you could have been stung 20 times, and then your body will change, and you could get stung one time and have a complete anaphylactic response and tip over dead on the mountain if you're not prepared.
Jeez, that's pretty crazy. That is, man.
So was your doctor saying, because I am not a medical doctor, and I think maybe we should say that. Well, none of us are medical doctors. So if you want professional, we're talking about medical things, but if you want professional medical advice, go talk to your doctor. I think,
absolutely,
did I cover us?
Yeah.
Did we do it, Jim?
Yeah. Also, I mean, if you go to podcasts about hunting and shooting and rifle scopes and stuff for your medical info, then I think there's some other stuff wrong. Maybe see a psychologist too.
Yeah, make good choices.
Yeah.
But like, what did they say about, like, if you did have like that severe reaction, right? That anaphylactic reaction, your throat is swelling shut. Maybe you are, hours away from professional help. With the epi and the antihistamine, like Benadryl, are you supposed to be using both those things at the same time? Did they say, or how are you supposed
Benadryl first, immediately.
Okay.
So now I keep the Benadryl in the very top lid of my backpack in a pocket. I tell whoever I'm hunting with, that's where it's at. If I get stung, get it. And now look, you take however many you feel like you should. I'm going to take more than the recommended dosage. But eat the Benadryl, get it in you. That is like the first line of defense. And then obviously have the EpiPen ready And what my doctor said is, look, you only use that thing if you feel like you're not going to be able to breathe.
Okay.
And then, like I said, haul butt out of the woods, get out of there, you know, and leave your gear. I mean, unless you have somebody to help you pack it out, just leave it and get out of there. Try to keep your heart rate as low as you can getting out of there and go seek medical attention quickly.
Yeah. Nope. That's
allergies and stuff are weird. It's even, it did even weird laughing about that time it happened to me, but for me, it wasn't even a bee. It was just one of those little no-see-ums. I remember it was kind of like, man, you know, like something got me on the lip. And then all of a sudden my lip was like 3 times its normal size. And I was like, well, that's never happened before.
Yeah.
But
which, you know, and then I wonder, it's like, okay, so you haven't been stung by an bee a while, but is that an indicator, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That'd be something probably worth talk to your doc about, Jim. But Joey, I will say this, and when we talked a little bit about backpacks earlier. So if you want to learn about packing your backpack, check out the 10-minute talk we did with Joey about packing your backpack. But one thing I had in my pack, actually, that I do always carry is a couple Benadryl. So
yeah. And you needed them when you were here on our bear hunt because you got chewed up. We both did.
Yep. The mosquitoes were severe. Mostly, they like me, apparently. They've always liked me, Jim.
I wonder if
somebody likes me. It's the mosquitoes.
Did you show Jim the video of, I think it was Brian Bayless and I?
Yes. Yep.
And then we have the camera on us, and there's no mosquitoes. Like maybe one flew by me.
Yep.
And then we turn the camera to Mark, and I'm not kidding. There was a cloud of mosquitoes around him.
It's uncanny. Like, I mean, we have the video evidence.
Follows you.
I do think, actually, we should look that up or ask somebody about that. Like, I do think certain people give off certain things that mosquitoes love. I'm one of those people. So I'm like a human thermocell for other people. Like, I just, instead of like, you know, making them go away, they just all suck right into me, and then you'll be fine even if you're like 2 feet away. So
you're more than welcome to hunt with me anytime.
Boy, I'm thinking back on that whole Benadryl thing. And do you remember what happened to me though that one day when I took Benadryl?
You had a reaction to the Benadryl.
You probably ought to know how you react to Benadryl too. That's another talk to your doctor thing. Did Mark ever tell you about that, Joey? Because I had that little reaction. I started noticing my throat was getting itchy, and I kind of felt a little bit of swelling happening elsewhere when I got bit on my lip. So somebody was like, well, you should take Benadryl. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of that before. So I took it. Never had taken it before. I'm also like, I don't ever drink caffeine. I don't really ever drink like sports drinks, nothing, anything.
Old clean living Jim.
Usually, like, the only thing I ever ingest that's not like food or water is basically like, you know, take some Airborne or take like a Tylenol. But anyway, I took a Benadryl, and I don't know what the next 6 hours was all a blur.
Jim was on drugs.
At first, it felt like I don't know anything about being on crack, but it felt like what I would assume being on crack is like. And then about 30 minutes later, it felt like I was on laughing gas. And then the next 5 hours, I don't remember a single minute of the next 5 hours.
That was bizarre. So that was an interesting reaction to the thing that you take for reactions. But
yes.
Yeah, you might want you might be a lightweight, maybe half a Benadryl.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah,
trim it back.
Well,
I do
bit. Know that Benadryl, I think, will make you drowsy. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I've never taken a Benadryl, so I could.
Oh man,
I could get stung by a bee, take a Benadryl, and it'd be like, you know, take me down. I don't know. Maybe I should try a Benadryl.
Maybe you should try.
Test it out.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
We said, consult your doctor.
Yeah.
But some very solid things to be thinking about right now.
Yes, and a very excellent 20-minute talk here. You know, it happens sometimes. But Joey, thanks a ton for joining us. Everybody out there, thanks for watching. If you are a doctor, maybe throw some comments down below about this stuff. We'd love to hear it. YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff works. So yes, we appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Be safe out there.
Blended on that one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.